just heard, I think is perfectly chosen with the passage of the gospel. And perfectly chosen because it matches. It's a good reaction to looking to the work of God. And it's a message for us. How should we react to such a gospel? When we read and we listen to such a gospel, what reaction should be triggered, should be invited in us? The psalm says, "Make a joyful shout to God, all the earth. Sing out the honor of his name. Make his praise glorious." Why should we do that? Because of his works. Not just his miraculous capacities and capabilities, but also because of his work with each and every one of us, as we're going to meditate on this passage of the gospel. The passage, we all know the story. Jesus met with St. Peter. They tried to catch fish all night. They didn't get anything. He told them, go to the depth. They got a lot of fish. But I think what needs our attention is the reaction of St. Peter, which is not very common. Being astonished is common. When you see something beyond the natural, the normal, you will be astonished. That's normal. I mean, even if a magician doing games. However, to have a reaction like St. Peter, this is not very common. This is what we're going to discuss today. But let's begin from the beginning of this passage. So, this is not my main point, but I don't want to skip it. The idea of that Jesus went to St. Peter and told him, go to the depth and to the deep sea and you will get fish. Even though he's a professional fisherman, that's his job. He does it for living. But he couldn't. He used all the tools, the knowledge, the experience, didn't get anything. And he knows that's part of the experience of a fisherman. However, to tell someone like that, go and do it again, that's against everything he has learned. But he did. And he said the famous word that, at your word, I will let down the net. And we know he catch a lot. I came across a nice quote from St. Gregory of Nyssa, one of the Cappadocian fathers, if you remember. Who are the three Cappadocian? You remember? We talked about them during the revival of St. Mary. So he is commenting in this passage and in this miracle. So he said something nice. He said, when Christ commanded to let down the nets, the multitude of the fishes taken was just as great as the Lord of the sea and land willed. So he instructed the fishes to come into the net. And he goes on to say, for the voice of the word is the voice of power. When we are with God, we are with the one who has power. When you ask, he can give you, he can. I mean, I always say, when someone is distressed, don't worry, it's going to be okay, it's going to be fine. How do you know? How do you know? How can you do to make it fine? How can you make someone not to worry? What help can you give someone with a disease, for example? You go to the doctor, but does the presence of doctors, the presence of medicine, yes, the average age went up a little bit with its complications. But we didn't defeat death. But when we are with God, we are with the one who can defeat even death. And he did it. So he goes on to say, for the voice of the word is the voice of power, at whose bidding at the beginning of the world light and the other creatures came forth. Now, the reason why I picked this comment from St. Gregory of Nyssa, it goes also with the Pauline epistle. We'll come back to that. At the beginning of the world, light and the other creatures came forth. At these things Peter wonders, for he was astonished, and all that were with him. So God has power, and this power is given to you if you are with him and in him, and you do everything through him. Let's get to I think the most important part of this passage. And to me, the most important part, I thought in the beginning to reread the passage and ask you, what do you think? What is the most important part of this passage? Can I give you a few seconds to think? Few seconds to think? You'll need to tell me which one, but did you get an idea? Did anyone get an idea? Which one? Yes, that's true. Depart from me, I am a sinful man. This is the reaction. This is when someone doesn't just deal with unnatural things, the supernatural things, just by astonishment. And by the way, this was the common reaction of the people. We want to see another sign. Can you show us another sign? Can you do that? They challenged him and asked him for more signs. They wanted to see something different. Even Jesus said that you are following me because I made the miracles of the blessing of the bread. So you are following me because you have eaten the bread. So people would follow Jesus for so many reasons, but not so many people can let the light of God shine on us, on them, to expose their sins, their weaknesses, their darkness. We all have darkness. We all have darkness. That's a general rule. But also, each and every one of us, including myself, they know their weaknesses. They know their darkness. But they want to share with anybody. Many people are kept from confessing because they don't want to some, they don't want to confess their own sins to themselves. They don't want to admit it. And there is others who feel the shame of exposing their sins to someone, whoever he is, even a priest. So, but this is not what St. Peter has done. What he has done is, he didn't think of, wow, that's great, I've never seen something like that. Or he would say, I expected you to do that, you're a great, whatever, miracle doer. He didn't say any of that. But he looked to himself and let the light of God shines and dissipates his darkness. And on that, I'm going to read, this is the only quote I'm going to read, so the last one. So this is from St. Ambrose. Do you know who St. Ambrose is? Anything? The Bishop of Milan. Okay, the Bishop of Milan. One thing. What else? Okay, remember this. He has a huge role in the conversion of St. Augustine. To say that because, I mean, when we read the comments of the church fathers on the gospel, they were transforming. By the way, I'm going to go sidetrack here. St. Augustine had a very negative view of the Old Testament. He said the Old Testament is not worth reading. And when he went and heard St. Ambrose, he started to get it. He started to get it. And he started to shift back to the church. Anyway, that's a side note. I'm going to go back. So St. Ambrose, this who was able to influence St. Augustine from his sinful life to transform to be St. Augustine, he says, say you also, depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. Please, all of us, we should say that today. Depart from me,